Tonight, Victoria's wild and weird weather strikes again, and there's more on the way. The latest live. Also, a shock death and sex attack claims in the final days of the state election campaign. 11 primary school students and their teacher injured as a science experiment triggers an explosion. Hospitals cracking down as the fourth COVID wave takes hold in our health system. And AFL teams back in action as second chance coaches assume control on the track.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Peter Mitchell starts now.
Good evening. It might be just 10 days before summer, but Victoria is on alert for more wild weather after another day of destructive winds, hail, snow and freezing temperatures. Emergency services have answered hundreds of calls for help in the latest blast, but we're still days away from a reprieve.
A 50-metre high pine tree crushed the Ryan family's Yarra Junction home, narrowly missing Don, his wife and their dog.
This part here is a bedroom, so it's clipped the corner here and then it's gone across the veranda, the roof there, and sort of clipped the lounge room, which is on the other side. So that's where we were sitting in the lounge room watching telly. And yeah, it's just like an explosion, so bang.
Victorians are shivering through spring, rocked by blasts of wild winds and ferocious hail.
You don't normally see this in our little suburban area. Also got snow predicted on Mount Donavuang today. There's 10 centimetres of snow predicted in November.
Heavy rain and gusts of up to 130 kilometres an hour swept through the state, creating havoc. Officially classified as destructive with similar force to a tropical cyclone. But there's nothing to feel tropical about in Melbourne. The wind chill was so cold today, the feels-like temperature dipped below freezing.
From Saturday morning through till now, we've had approximately 1,400 requests for assistance and over 1,000 of those have been for tree-related jobs. So we are still expecting these high wind conditions to continue through the afternoon and the evening. We will see some respite as we move later into the week, but the rest of the day is going to continue to be cold and windy.
This was Brighton at 2 p.m. today. 16 kilometres away and half an hour later, Mount Waverley was hit with balls of hail. Chadstone and Clayton also blanketed. The coldest place in Victoria was Falls Creek. Spring snow also fell at Mount Buller. Recent flooding still impacting our farmers, with millions of dollars worth of crops and livestock lost in Victoria.
We know that there's more than 9,800 livestock deaths and another 1,400 head of livestock still missing. We know that more than 300,000 hectares of crops have been inundated with water.
And Cassie Zervos has the latest from Albert Park Beach. Cassie, there are more warnings in place tonight.
Well, Mitch, the Bureau says today was the worst day of the week, but thankfully it's almost over. The strong wind isn't expected to ease until tomorrow, so a severe weather warning across the state will remain in place tonight. For those brave enough to swim here at the bay, the water quality has been rated poor, so the advice is to stay away. The best day of the week is looking like Friday, with the sun finally coming out. A temperature top of 25 degrees is expected. Mitch.
Cassie Zervos at Albert Park, thank you. There are new shocks in the countdown to the state election, with a Nationals candidate found dead and revelations he was facing rape allegations. The tragic development came as the final days of the campaign are dogged by controversy and personal attacks.
Accused of favouring Nazis and extremists, the Liberal Party lashed out.
We need to stop this divisive language. It is hurtful, it is dangerous, it is damaging, and it needs to stop.
But Daniel Andrews wasn't backing down.
We are better than this. This Americanisation of our politics is wrong. It is violent, it is angry, and it achieves nothing.
If there are neo-Nazis running for this election, I want to know who they are.
In Narre Warren South, independent Tyler Baker-Pearce's social media is littered with anti-Semitic posts, including this in response to the Premier's comments yesterday. Not talking about me, is he? #flattered. The Liberal Party have placed him at number 5 on their How to Vote card, above the Greens, Animal Justice and Labor Party. The Labor candidate also has Mr Baker Pearce at number 5, but have placed the Liberal Party above him, below the Liberal Democrats, Family First and Freedom Party.
Those who would like to be considered the alternative government of our state are preferencing Labor at the end, behind extremists.
Well, the Premier needs to look in the mirror at himself. He said he doesn't want to Americanise Victorian politics, and then he comes out with the most extreme and desperate language I've seen from a Victorian Premier.
The Coalition today confirmed the death of their Narracan candidate, Sean Gilchrist. The 47-year-old was facing rape charges in the county court. His death isn't being treated as suspicious. The Coalition says they weren't aware of the allegations.
Whatever the situation is, someone here has died, and there is now a widow and 2 children whose father is not coming home.
There were questions too about Labor's candidate for Richmond after her family claimed she isn't of Aboriginal heritage.
I'm Lauren O'Dwyer, Nagapa Yorta Yorta Winya Ngana. I'm a Yorta Yorta woman.
That's a matter of her identity, and she's been very, very clear about who she is and where she comes from.
On the campaign trail, the promises keep coming. Daniel Andrews headed north today with a $30 million pledge for regional Victoria.
We have a very special wine industry, but we want to make sure that we support through grants, through a partnership, through sitting down and working with our wine sector.
Earlier, Daniel Andrews rubbed shoulders with the PM in a no media allowed event, thanking volunteers. The Liberal leader made a keynote speech in Melbourne, reinforcing their overall campaign.
We've got a plan. It's sensible, it's responsible, it's well documented and planned.
Backing him in by acknowledging his own shock loss.
I'm backing a repeat of what happened in 1999.
Chanel Vella, 7 News.
And Victorians are rushing to vote early in this election. Jodie Lee has been crunching the numbers, and Jodie, the early vote is up 50% on the last election.
Mitch, more than 818,000 Victorians have already voted. That's roughly 1 in 5 eligible adults, and there are still 4 days to go until election day. To give you an idea, at the same time during the 2018 election, just 542,000 people had cast an early vote. So we are seeing an increase of around 50% in the number of Victorians choosing to vote early. The Electoral Commission said that after the 2018 ballot, it spoke with constituents who said they really enjoyed the convenience and flexibility of being able to vote ahead of time. So this year, each district has not 1 but 2 early voting centres, each with extended hours. Analysts are saying that at this year's election, those early votes will certainly shape the outcome. Mitch?
Jodie Lee at South Yarra, thank you. A school explosion has left 11 primary school students and their teacher injured. Robert Ovadia is in Sydney with the latest. And Robert, a science experiment backfired badly.
Hi Peter, yeah, it backfired is probably an understatement. It was a bit of a disaster, especially for the teacher conducting this experiment. It's known colloquially as a black snake. It's a mixture of baking soda and sugar with accelerant used as a catalyst to ignite a chemical reaction. Unfortunately, the reaction, which did go to plan, didn't go to plan with the blustery conditions here in Sydney today. Wind blowing the foam onto the faces, arms, legs and chest of kids in Year 5 at Manly West Public School here on Sydney's northern beaches. 11 of them were injured, most of them with superficial injuries, including 4 who were brought here to the Northern Beaches Hospital where I am. The 2 most serious injuries, however, were taken to the Premier Children's Hospital in Sydney, the Westmead Children's Hospital in the western suburbs. The main concern was not only the foam that blew on the student's face, but equally fears for that boy's airways too. From what we understand, they are certainly not life-threatening injuries, but not the sort of day you want out of school, Peter.
Robert Ovadia in Sydney, thank you. Overseas now, and 5 people have been murdered and dozens wounded in a mass shooting in America. A lone gunman opened fire in a gay nightclub in Colorado just before midnight.
All I can think about is everything, my life.
It ended when
Just everything, friends, family.
It ended when 2 heroic patrons dragged the gunman to the ground. The Albanese government is facing a drawn-out battle to pass Labor's signature industrial relations bill before Parliament wraps up for the year. Business leaders are slamming the reform, but the Prime Minister insists he's fighting for fairness.
He says his industrial reforms will put the little people at the centre of the big picture. Anthony Albanese slaps down the coalition and business who he says wrongly suggest the sky will fall in.
They say it every time and they are wrong every time. And we will push ahead like we do every time.
His audience a union conference, but his message directed at an unconvinced Senate crossbench.
I do not feel confident in still voting for it within the next 2-week period.
Business says the so-called single stream changes allowing workers in similar small and medium-sized businesses to bargain together will lead to industrial mayhem.
We're concerned that this bill will result in higher costs, it will result in disruption to business, it will result in a loss of jobs.
I just do not believe anything that's been said about that. It's all scaremongering.
This is the Parliament's big chance to get wages moving again by fixing a broken bargaining system.
It's now a question of tactics and resolve. The government only needs a single crossbench vote in the Senate to get the laws passed. Jackie Lambie's a no for now, which leaves the focus on one person, former rugby international David Pocock. Senator Pocock backs most of the bill but wants the multi-employer bargaining issue dealt with separately. The government says it will not split the bill.
To take little bits out, almost a cherry pick, unravels the bill.
The Senate will now work overtime, possibly adding Friday sittings to reach a vote before Parliament's due to rise for the year next week. Mark Riley, 7 News.
Ukraine's largest nuclear power plant has been damaged by shelling, with the United Nations nuclear watchdog warning those responsible are playing with fire. There have been at least 12 explosions at the Zaporizhzhia site, which is in Russian-controlled territory. Russia and Ukraine are blaming each other for the attacks. Soccer's World Cup is off to a rocky start in Qatar, on and off the pitch. Fans stormed out during the opening game, while organisers were left red-faced after a controversial moment in the pre-match entertainment.
In a stadium styled as a Bedouin tent, the World Cup begins in a flap.
Welcome and good luck to all.
After 12 years of controversy, the Cup kicks off with another in a country condemned for its lack of it.
With tolerance and respect, we can live together under one big home.
The performance with a disabled YouTuber and local Cup ambassador again threw a spotlight on Qatar's dismal record on foreign workers' rights, women and homosexuality. Then, for the tiny host nation, the tournament appeared over as quickly as it had begun.
And again, oh, what a fine header.
Ecuador winning 2-0. Qatar made history, the first host nation in a World Cup to lose an opening match. Not that Ecuador's fans could celebrate the way they wanted to. Chanting "We want beer" in Spanish after Qatar's last-minute booze ban. Troubles outside the stadium too, fan zones hopelessly overcrowded. Tens of thousands had tried to enter, trapping children in the crush.
We are expending so much. How many racing? They didn't organise properly.
In fact, $200 billion. They're hoping their fortunes improve. Chris Reason, 7 News.
Back home now, Melbourne hospitals are cracking down on visitors' rules as the fourth COVID wave takes its toll. Blake Johnson has developments from the Epworth, and Blake, it's already hitting frontline hospital staff.
Pete, the Health Department has revealed that tonight 1,045 hospital workers are in isolation from COVID. That's in line with the current rules for medical staff. Still, that's around half of what we saw during the last big COVID wave in July, but it is having an effect, and the peak of the current wave not due for another 1 to 2 weeks. Visiting rules differ from hospital to hospital. Most have a cap of 2 visitors per day. It is 1 per day at Eastern Health, where you will also need to provide proof of a negative COVID rapid test result before you enter. They are also not allowing COVID patients in hospital to have visitors. The rules vary depending on the ward you're visiting. There are exceptions in extreme circumstances, particularly end-of-life care. If you're about to visit someone in hospital, check that particular hospital's website for the most up-to-date visitor restrictions. Peter?
Blake Johnson at Richmond, thank you. AFL clubs are back in action with second chance coaches taking over on the training track. Veterans Alistair Clarkson, Ross Lyon and Brad Scott have officially back in the hot seat for 2023.
A new pre-season with some familiar faces. 40 years of coaching experience has returned to the AFL.
We're all just sort of feeling our way, really. We're just in that honeymoon period. It's not a bad job when there's no wins and losses to worry about, is it?
Ross Lyon's made an instant impact, already attracting new sponsors.
Really
Thanks, Ross.
pleased to have you.
11 years after he quit Moorabbin, Lyon is back with a trio of Saints, Robert Harvey, Lenny Hayes and Brendan Goddard.
It's not that they're just great players, it's how they went about it and what mentality they can bring, and they know what it smells like, feels like, looks like, and they can help just edge our players towards that path.
At North Melbourne, Alistair Clarkson was hands-on after months in the headlines. Generations colliding, teaching Glenn Archer's son Jackson how to snap. While former Roos coach Brad Scott is now in charge at the Bombers, plotting how to snap Essendon's 6,652-day finals drought. Unfinished business too for Brownlow medalist Patrick Cripps, who joins senior Carlton players making an early return to training.
The fact they come in here is, a little bit earlier probably speaks to some of the drive, but the fact that they make a choice to come here is, is a nice first choice to make.
Richmond showed off giant recruits Tim Taranto and Jacob Hopper, while Geelong, Collingwood and Melbourne are all due back next week. Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Tim Watson's here with a look ahead to more sport, and Tim, Jeff Kennett has hit back at claims he's acting like a Russian dictator.
Mitch, we've spoken to a fired-up outgoing Hawks president. We'll hear from him soon. Also, a blow for the Socceroos just days out from their World Cup opener against France. Dave Warner a step closer to returning to a leadership role with the Aussie cricket team. And Mitch, why the Demons hope to be the party poopers on Sunday.
OK, we'll see you a bit later on.
No one likes a party pooper.
No, they don't at all. Thank you, Tim. Angry locals are fighting back to save a one-of-a-kind animal hospital in Melbourne's west. The details are next. Also coming up, a bitter dispute threatening a Christmas favourite. See the frightening moment a drone air show went rogue. Later, a new crackdown on buy now, pay later. Also tips on bagging a Black Friday bargain.
And this latest Antarctic blast does ease tomorrow, but it's a few days until warm weather returns. Full details later in 7 News.
The supply of mince pies for Christmas is under threat after workers from Pampers in Footscray walked off the job in a pay dispute. The company supplies mince pies to Baker's Delight stores across Victoria.
You can see there isn't much product coming out today. Our members here are 100% united and standing together, and they're prepared to fight for as long as it takes.
Staff want a 6% pay rise and better conditions for casuals. Angry locals are fighting back to save a one-of-a-kind animal hospital in Melbourne's west. The centre doubles as a critical training ground for vets, with authorities under pressure to rethink plans to shut it down.
Standing in solidarity to save Werribee's Animal Hospital.
It's really heartbreaking. It's unimaginable. We just don't know where this came from.
The University of Melbourne announced it's planning to end operations at UVet, which looks after more than 20,000 pets a year.
I couldn't imagine it not being here. I've been coming to UniMel Vet School for 42 years.
It's just close to home. It's just we're having a race stock that's going to have a vet available 24/7, and with it closing down, what do I do now?
As well as being the only vet hospital in the West, it's the state's only dedicated teaching facility as the industry faces staff shortages.
It's just really emotional to lose the team that
got us here.
This will be catastrophic to the veterinary industry. Veterinarians around the world have one of the highest suicide rates in the world. Working in this field is very stressful, and if you don't have the right avenues of support from day one, it is very hard.
Up to 100 staff are now coming to terms with the fact they could be out of a job right before Christmas.
As a little girl wanting to become a vet nurse, this was the place to be, and I've always said since I was employed here that I would retire here.
The University of Melbourne says at this stage closing the centre here is just a proposal, and if it does go ahead, arrangements will be made for students to get the training they need at commercial vet hospitals.
That's a real big blow.
Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A Sri Lankan cricketer accused of sexually assaulting a woman in Sydney has been released from custody. Danushka Gunatilaka was granted bail on strict conditions following his arrest earlier this month. The 31-year-old is required to follow a curfew, report to police daily and surrender his passport. He'll return to court in January. Cold case detectives claim they've identified one of the nation's worst serial rapists. The man, dubbed the Beast of Bondi, is blamed for up to 31 attacks.
40 years to unmask the Beast of Bondi. Keith Mago Sims from La Perouse.
He's a very vicious person with an intense hatred of women. He stalks his victims.
Frustratingly, Sims will never face justice. The 66-year-old died in March.
Today there will be, a sense of comfort knowing of who it is, but they will also feel as though this person hasn't done his time.
Until now, Sims was known as a loving family man, a husband of almost 44 years.
They love one another and would do everything together.
Between 1985 and 2001, women across the eastern suburbs were terrorised by the sex attacker dubbed the Centennial Park Rapist, the Tracksuit Rapist and the Beast of Bondi. His victims aged between 13 and 55, attacked in their own homes or while exercising, threatened with a knife, then sexually assaulted.
This Bondi beast was an animal.
The breakthrough coming from another man's DNA, a prisoner.
Their DNA is matched against the database and it comes up that this person is a male relative of the DNA from the rapes that they've been investigating for 30 odd years.
Sims took his sinister secrets to the grave, but the truth wouldn't stay buried. Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
A Christmas light show in Perth has turned to disaster with dozens of drones dropping out of the sky, plunging into a river. The technical glitch turned the flying lights rogue. The drones, worth thousands of dollars, have all been destroyed. The show's manager has been in crisis meetings all day trying to work out exactly what went wrong. Bayside residents in Melbourne have been rattled by low-flying fighter jets screaming along the shoreline. Next, what's going on and how long it's going to last. Also, a family's fight for justice over the shock death of a young basketball star at Docklands. A music megastar's touching tribute to Olivia Newton-John. And the NGV unveils a new colourful twist on the famous Greek ruins. Bayside residents have been rattled by a military operation as two low-flying fighter jets screamed along the shore. The Air Force reassured residents from Mount Martha to Chelsea that they were not under attack. Instead, it was part of a series of training activities which could continue into tomorrow. 5 men have faced court over the alleged murder of a promising young basketballer at Docklands. Today, the court was told he was stabbed to death while trying to protect his older brother.
Aaliyah Riak was a promising young basketballer who'd just been signed to an interstate team. But the 23-year-old's life was cut short in March this year when he was stabbed to death in the Docklands. Today, 5 men faced court from prison over the attack. The victim's brother telling a magistrate the basketballer had been trying to save their other brother Quol from a gang of youths who'd started marching towards their car. Aaliyah ran over to Kual from the car to help him. That's when Aaliyah was targeted and they all started stabbing him repeatedly. Mr. Riak's parents were in court to hear evidence about their son's death, 2 of the young men pleading guilty to charges of affray. 2 other men charged with Riak's murder set to front court tomorrow. A 6th young man was also facing charges relating to the brawl, but this afternoon had his charges dropped. The other 5 men have been remanded in custody. The committal hearing continues tomorrow. Estelle Greepink, 7 News.
And a teenager has been charged over the brutal stabbing of a 15-year-old boy outside a shopping centre in Bacchus Marsh. The accused is a 17-year-old from the western suburbs. He was arrested yesterday, 4 days after the alleged attack on Bennett Street. The victim was taken to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Pop superstar Pink has paid tribute to the late Olivia Newton-John during the American Music Awards in LA. Taylor Swift dominated the awards, taking home all 6 she was nominated for, including Artist of the Year. A new exhibition has been unveiled at the NGV, putting a modern twist on ancient Greek ruins. The colourful display is set to be a summer drawcard for art lovers across Melbourne.
At one of Melbourne's oldest buildings, a modern take on ancient ruins called the Temple of Boom.
If there was one building that you could be a fly on the wall and experience all that it had been through.
The replica stands as an art piece at the National Gallery of Victoria.
Over its 2,000 years life, it was originally a temple to Athena. It's been a mosque, a Christian cathedral.
But like many historic structures in Melbourne, 3 artists have used this building as a blank canvas for street art. It took Preston artist Drez over 100 hours across 10 days to paint this masterpiece.
All of my artwork is centred around colour. As you move to different angles, you'll get different colour interactions.
It's also a stage for live music over the summer.
Friday night live music, music on the weekends.
The exhibition opens tomorrow and it's free.
The Temple of Boom was created during COVID lockdowns. This year's NGV Architectural Commission was designed to bring everyone together for summer.
Another 5 artists will also add to it over the 8 months. Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Anna Meares, one of Australia's greatest ever cyclists, has been appointed the next chef de mission for the 2024 Paris Olympics team.
I feel very honoured and a little bit nervous but excited as well.
Ms Meares is just the 2nd woman to lead the Australian team at an Olympic Games. Gravestones have been damaged in the wild winds. The breaking news is next. Also, new rules for buy now, pay later schemes, what shoppers need to know. Also coming up, an urgent toy warning heading into Christmas. Collingwood stars cook up a storm for an important cause. And later, expert advice on how to bag the best of the Black Friday bargains. These pictures have just come through to the newsroom as wild winds continue to lash the state. A massive tree has come down on the edge of the Melbourne General Cemetery in Carlton North. There are no reports of any injuries, but there is damage to a fence and to graves. Firefighters have issued an urgent Christmas warning on gifts with lithium-ion batteries, including e-bikes and scooters. Emergency crews have been called to 180 lithium-ion battery fires since January. One started by an e-bike destroyed a home in Sydney. They say the batteries can build up intense heat until they explode and should never be left connected to a power source overnight. It has been a tough start to the week for mining companies on the share market. Here's Network Finance editor Gemma Acton.
Thanks, Peter. A solid start has faded into a soft finish. The ASX 200 sliding 13 points to 7,139. Miners, including BHP, Rio Tinto and Fortescue, were among today's biggest fallers. The Aussie dollar has been losing ground since mid last week. It's now buying around 66.4 US cents, while iron ore prices are back to their highest point in nearly 3 months. They've been helped by recent signs the Chinese government is beginning to loosen its strict COVID-19 rules. What happens to the price of our largest export next year will largely depend on how resilient demand from China remains in the face of a global economic slowdown. Peter.
Gemma Acton reporting. A crackdown is looming on buy now, pay later schemes, with tougher rules expected as soon as next year. The federal government says too many people, especially younger Australians, are burying themselves in risky debt.
No credit checks, little regulation. Buy now, pay later is running competition to credit cards, but without the rules to protect vulnerable users. The federal government is now looking to change that.
It's a great innovation. It's producing great competition for credit cards, but we want to ensure that that innovation and that competition is happening in the right way.
An investigation by Treasury found 7 million active buy now, pay later accounts, most held by Australians aged between 18 and 35. And some are digging themselves financial holes. The Australian Securities and Investment Commission revealed 1 in 5 is missing payments.
Sometimes we're seeing people that have been signed up to multiple accounts at the same time. The providers haven't checked whether they've got other outstanding accounts.
Treasury recommends several options for change, including buy now, pay later being regulated under the Credit Act, which would force them to obtain a credit licence.
We don't want to stop people getting access to something that they're using properly and safely, but we do want to ensure that there is a basic level of check in place here.
The changes will be announced sometime next year. Blake Johnson, 7 News.
Collingwood Stars are on a mission to tackle local hunger, joining forces with the City of Melbourne for the Magpie Meals program.
Not only providing jobs and training for new migrant women, but importantly being able to access beautiful and culturally safe meals.
Members of the club's AFLW and netball teams help create the meals. Sport is next with Tim Watson, and Tim, the Blues coach, is letting last season's pain sink in.
Here's Mitch. Michael Voss has given the players a reality check on day one of pre-season training. That's next. Also, Ross Lyon was already making changes on the first day with his troops at Moorabbin. The new Tigers looking to make a giant impression with their teammates. David Warner up for the fight to clear his lifetime leadership ban, and why the Socceroos will have to introduce themselves to the French. Welcome back. Blues coach Michael Voss has wasted no time reminding his players of the harsh reality of missing the finals. Carlton's entire squad returned on day one of pre-season, including an injury-free and fired-up Brownlow medalist.
A sour end to their season has sparked an early return for the Stars.
We'll own that, and also the part that we need to own is the reality that we weren't good enough to make it. Now it's up to us to make sure that we get to work.
Michael Voss refusing to put a ceiling on Carlton's 2023, but knows September is a must.
You know, for us, just about making finals, it's about impacting them, and it's fine to say that, but this is what this next 3 months holds for us.
Anthony McDonald tipping Woody back to greet old teammates again. Darcy Parish and Dyson Heppel among the senior Bombers to get a jump on pre-season that's set for a tougher fitness edge under new coach Brad Scott.
He's made sure that everyone's in the mindset that we're ready to get in, get stuck in and work hard. So I think he's going to drive some really strong standards, which I think we need as a group.
Bradley Hill, half-back, no more. His former coach keen to loosen the shackles.
Performed for Clarkson, he performed for me, he's performed here. We're pretty hard taskmasters, so he knows what's expected. He'll probably play less half-back, I would think, getting back to his pet position.
Youngster Marcus Windhager, today's time trial winner. No Taranto or Hopper, but new Giants boss Adam Kingsley is drawing inspiration from Collingwood's rise.
They did a fantastic job last year, and certainly an example to us that anything's possible.
Toby Green among the senior players on hand for Kingsley's first session.
And outgoing Hawthorn President Jeff Kennett is back chairing the board meeting tonight. He's also hit back at calls from Hawthorn legend and former AFL Commissioner Chris Langford that his board has been run like a Russian dictatorship. Kennett emailing and calling Langford, refuting that the Hawks have used the members' database against the Constitution to push his case for Peter Nankervis in the presidential fight against Andy Gowers.
A lot of ex-players, great Hawthorn people, do their work, get salute, play well, retain their past play, but they're not around the club. None of what's happening at Hawthorn is because of Jeff Kennett. We have a collegiate board.
And North Melbourne is in the final stages of its CEO search. Geelong football boss Simon Lloyd, a clear front-runner before the final meetings on Friday. Tim?
Thanks, Mitch. Demons AFLW captain Daisy Pearce isn't using last season's grand final heartache as motivation for redemption in Sunday's decider. Instead, they're planning on spoiling the party of Brisbane's new stadium unveiling.
We don't mind. Good patch of grass somewhere in Australia to go out and play in a grand final on. Let's do it. We'll go up and enjoy christening their home facility, hopefully.
The turf was only laid a month ago, with parts of the precinct still a construction site. The Socceroos say they're about to show the French stars and the world exactly who they are. They're 2 days from a shot at revenge on the World Cup champions, who say they've never heard of our Aussie players.
No, not at all. I don't know any of them.
We were so close but so far last time. There'll always be, upsets, and the script's never written.
Winger Martin Boyle will miss the entire tournament after failing to recover from a knee injury, while Qatar is the first host nation in the World Cup's history, that's a 92-year history, to lose its opening match, going down to Ecuador 2-0. David Warner has savaged Cricket Australia for treating him like a criminal with the lifetime leadership ban over Sandpaper Gate. Now, a complicated code of conduct review will have him fight to have it overturned.
The gloves are off and David Warner is preparing to fight.
At the end of the day, I'm not a criminal. You should get a right of an appeal. I understand that they put a ban in place, but banning someone for life, I think, is a bit harsh.
Warner was given a lifetime ban from all cricket leadership positions for his role in the 2018 Sandpaper scandal. But the 36-year-old will take his case to a review panel after a change to Cricket Australia's Code of Conduct, allowing for long-term players' sanctions to be modified.
It's tad disappointing that when you make a decision in 2018, it's in 4 days, and then this takes 9 months. It's been drawn out. It's traumatic for me and my family, and everyone else that was involved in it.
Cricket Australia will consider if Warner has shown genuine remorse, his behaviour since the incident, rehabilitation programs undertaken, and the amount of time that has passed.
I've done everything I've had to do possibly right. Let's go out there and play the best brand of cricket I could. Help the teammates as much as I could as well.
If the ban is lifted and Warner does get the chance to captain Australia again, his teammates will be in his corner.
From a captaincy point of view, yeah, sure. His knowledge on the game and the way he thinks about the game is very good.
Natalie Yanides, 7 News.
Daniel Ricciardo isn't giving up hope of a return to the track despite waving goodbye to his career at McLaren. The Aussie is set to be Red Bull's reserve driver next year, but ended his stint at McLaren finishing with 9th at the season-ending Abu Dhabi Grand Prix.
It's obviously beat me down a bit, the last couple of years, and that's where I just need a little bit of time removed from it to find a part of myself again and rebuild a little bit.
Dual world champion Max Verstappen signed off with a record 15th win of the season, and maybe our Socceroos can put their names on the front as well as the back. That will help the French.
That might not be a bad thing. They don't know who we are, Tim, Thank you very much indeed. The race to snap up Black Friday deals is on, with the week-long shopping spree now rivalling the Boxing Day sales. Savvy buyers are saving thousands on pre-Christmas bargains.
The calm from above hides the hive of activity inside this Amazon fulfillment centre as its Black Friday sales kick off today.
We are going to have 9 whole days of savings.
Olympian-turned-entrepreneur Tyler Martin is flogging his non-alcoholic drinks on the platform with one eye on Christmas.
We've got our award-winning advent calendar, so it's a drink a day for a full month.
Amazon is far from the only retailer jumping the gun. Bose noise-cancelling headphones are $150 cheaper, while on eBay Nespresso coffee machines are 40% off. You can get up to $2,000 off a TV at Bing Lee and huge discounts on pots and pans at Myer. Many Dyson products are cheaper, and your next getaway on Booking.com could be 30% less.
We predicted that 33% of Christmas shopping has already been done in the first 3 weeks of November, with another 25% being done this week.
The Retailers Association forecasts Australians will spend a record $6.2 billion during this year's Black Friday sales, with research showing the average discount offered is a generous 22%.
Biggest Black Friday sales we've had on record. We expect 1.5 million people to walk through our doors over the next few days.
Gemma Acton, 7 News.
Jane Barn is next with the forecast. And Jane, there's some warmth inside from this cold blast.
Mitch, now it will take a few days to thaw out, but the end of the week looks lovely. I'll show you how much warmth is on the horizon next.
Tonight on the latest from 7 News, too much stock to handle why you shouldn't struggle to find what you're looking for in the Black Friday sales. Is superannuation in need of a shake-up? We'll ask the boss of a major fund. Plus the team about to take a very bold stand at the World Cup. When it breaks, we'll have it live at 10:50.
In 7 News, taming toddlers, life-changing help for families.
That just really helped me.
The world first, taking on tantrums.
There's strategies that we know work.
Melbourne child experts putting parents in control. Only on 7 News with Peter Mitchell at 6 o'clock.
Hello again on another day that wouldn't be out of place in July. It is good to know there is warmth on the way, but it'll take a few days to arrive. This is our third day this month where it's failed to reach 14 degrees. The November average is 22. Now, the big impacts today are the gusty winds and the downpours with wintry hail completely covering this oval in Wantirna. Tiny balls of ice that bounce when they reach the ground. And as you head into the hills, it changes to snow. A little at first, then a full blanket covering the Alps. Here are those showers streaming through. So it's sunny 1 minute, pouring the next, and repeat. Winds have been gusting 90 to 100 k's an hour. That's through the Melbourne area. That makes it feel like less than freezing when a shower hits. No part of the state has escaped the wind or the chill or the downpours on a bitter Monday afternoon. We have been hit by cold front after cold front, and the coldest one arrived here today. Now, there is another one due tomorrow, but its path is different. It powers across Tasmania, only just brushing us. All these areas remain at risk of damaging winds whenever a squally shower passes through. Now, it will moderate over inland parts this evening, but it may continue at the coast tomorrow. With the next front slipping southwards, we have less wet weather here. The falls are lighter, but for the next 2 days, there are still lots of showers passing through. Here's what it looked like out there this afternoon. Cold greens and blues. By late in the week, it'll feel completely different. Warm yellows and pinks. That is our next taste of warm weather. Around the nation, it was hot in Brisbane today. Tomorrow is back to average November weather, top of 29. Sunny in Sydney, cloudy in Canberra. It's Hobart's turn for damaging winds in squally showers and wintry hail. Adelaide is cloudy, showers in the morning. Perth has the heat tomorrow, and that's a version of that will arrive here later in the week. To Victoria, widespread showers over the south and ranges, most frequent in areas exposed to a gusty southwesterly wind, which is still strong at the Gippsland coast. Cloud covers the rest as snow retreats back up to alpine areas. Closer in, if you're in southeastern suburbs, still lots of showers passing through, up to 10 millimetres. The northwest has much less activity, just a millimetre or two at best. We are all cloudy though, but the wind isn't quite as strong as today. The falls aren't as heavy. There's no more wintry hail, so we rise up to 17. To the 8-day outlook, it is similar on Wednesday, heading for a top of 19, less showers overall. Thursday, lovely, expecting about 21, then 22 on Friday. Bright sunshine returning in through here, but still southerly winds, so on the cooler side. The heat peaks on Saturday, the risk of a late storm. Some more of those are at risk on Sunday, then another cool outbreak. We thaw out tomorrow, rising to 17, cloudy, showers passing through. End of the week looks great, Mitch.
Bit more spring-like on the outlook. Thank you, Jane. Now, here's what's on Sunrise tomorrow.
Thanks, Mitch. Tomorrow on Sunrise, Paul Hogan live and exclusive.
How the 83-year-old really feels about being roasted by his celebrity mates. Plus, the Sunrise Secret Santa could be knocking on your door with a $10,000 Coles gift card.
See you in the morning, Melbourne.
And that's the way it is this Monday, the 21st of November. Thanks for your company. For now, from the 7 News team, good night.